When our son Josh was 5.5 years old, he got very ill and was taken to the emergency room and subsequently to a major hospital for children. And during the course of evaluating what was going on with him, certain things about Joshua that had always been unusual and peculiar in terms of his development were being looked at. And in the course of that, the doctors at this hospital, besides addressing the fact that he had a major pneumonia, which was the illness, looking for the cause of it, came up with a diagnosis of a very rare disease. Unfortunately, that disease was progressive and terminal, and they told us that our 5.5-year-old probably had a year to live at best. We were, of course, terrified and went along with that. Surgeries were done. But unfortunately, instead of either stabilizing or getting better, Joshua continued to get worse. Since this disease had not been seen for about 30 years, we were told...
In fact, there were only 16 cases in 150 years.
Right. So they told us they really didn't know if he was, that this failing was the normal progression of the disease. But a lot of things didn't seem to make sense for us. Eventually we requested a second opinion, and we went up to New York for that. And we were getting a lot of information, but none of it seemed to be in the right direction. Finally, we did discover through a friend of ours finding an article in a magazine, go figure, what Joshua really had. The symptoms that were discussed seemed right. So we questioned the doctors and said, is it possible that he has this? Which is familial dysautonomia, and we were told, no, he does not have that. But eventually, when Joshua had stabilized and to the point that his survival looked like we were going to be okay, because there were years every night we went to bed not knowing if he'd be alive in the morning. Once things sort of settled down, then we looked at each other and said, you know, we think, intelligent people. How did this all happen? How did we let it happen? Or how did they make it happen? How did we find ourselves in this place? And then that was when we started to look into it to see what the process was and where the ball got dropped.
We didn't know what to do. We did suspect that we should see an attorney. So we did see a number of attorneys who felt compassion but did not think that there was anything there. Until we met Davy, and he had faith in us, and he led us in a direction to do more research, and we found that there had been some problems in terms of what was being done. We found the information and going through medical records, and we brought it to Davy's attention, and he reviewed it, and he felt that there was something wrong. We still didn't know for sure, but he had enough faith in us that he said that he would take our case. And before we went to court, we asked Davy if there was something that we needed to do, and or anything that he needed to tell us. And I remember very clearly he said, I don't want you to tell your story to the jury and the judge through your head. He says, I want you to tell it through your heart, because if you tell it through your heart, you'll be telling the truth. We weren't nervous, and we spoke with confidence. But the best part was actually seeing Davy in action. He said he was so impressive. He doesn't come on, like fire. He presented the case, especially in cross-examination. He it was it was beautiful to see how he dealt with the expert witnesses who were quite renowned, to say the least.
One thing that I remember thinking about Davy when we were in court was he has a very little boy look to his face, and very gentle speech pattern, and I know that people on the jury could feel comfortable with him just listening to him talk, but it's almost it almost belies the intelligence and the sharpness that he has. You think he's unsophisticated, he is not. And the questions that he would ask, and the cross-examination particularly, they were so right on, and you found yourself smiling like, wow, he just walked them right into where he wanted them to go, and they didn't even realize it because he would just had this innocence about him, not the shark lawyer that you are always afraid of. The jury liked him a lot, which was to our benefit, certainly. He asked good questions of all of us. He questioned Aaron, he questioned me, he questioned Joshua, our son. Remember, he asked him, do you know the difference between the truth and a lie?
And our son said,
he said yes.
He says, yes, I never lie. And then he asked him what disease he had when the doctors, attorneys were trying to prove that he didn't have what he had. And Davy said to him, what do you have, Joshua? And he says, I have familial dysautonomia. And that I think that sealed it. They never questioned Joshua, and the jury, I remember at the end, one of the jurors came up and gave me a hug. She was crying, and she says, your son has familial dysautonomia. I knew it from the point that Davy asked him that question. And no matter what they tried to prove after that, they got nowhere with us.
Davy stayed involved in our lives even after everything was over. He advised us going through it because, nothing's ever finished when you think it's finished. There were threats of appeal and other lawsuits relative to who can testify against whom in the medical world. So Davy stayed involved with us, kept us abreast of everything that was happening, and has still stayed involved with us all these years later. He still sends Josh birthday cards, calls us every once in a while. We've gotten together. He's very special to us. We had no experience with attorneys before this, and we all have ideas in our mind of what attorneys are like, who do this type of work, who, personal injury, and I'm really proud to have known him and to continue to know him. He's an honest, gentle, compassionate person who really becomes part of the family. Yeah. That's how we feel about him.
And he cares for his clients. That's the most important thing to him. So he'll fight for you, and he just does everything he can for first clients. At the end, we talked to Davey, and we said, why did this happen? This is not what doctors are supposed to do. And he said that based on the record, based on the depositions, based on the final conclusion, the only thing he could say was that they were probably hoping that he would die.